2,000 years ago, deep within an ancient European forest, there was a village that no human kingdom knew existed. The village was hidden so deeply among the trees that even hunters who entered the forest could walk within a few steps of it and never see a thing. Its people were not human. They were fairies, born from the ancient magic of the forest itself. For generations, they had lived by one simple rule: protect the forest, and the forest would protect them. At the heart of the village stood the oldest oak tree anyone had ever seen, and beneath its branches lived their leader, a centuries-old fairy named Eldrick. Eldrick had ruled wisely for more than 300 years, and almost every fairy trusted his judgment. He knew that forests could remember, and sometimes they could remember things that everyone else had forgotten. Among Eldrick's people was Aelira, the village healer, whose magic could make dying plants bloom again. Branwen guarded the village borders, carrying a carved wooden spear and watching the forest for anything that did not belong. Elwyn, the youngest, was always looking beyond those borders. She wanted to discover the ruins, caves, and forgotten paths that Eldrick had forbidden her to enter. Then there was Nimue, who lived beside the river and could command the water with a single touch. Rowena kept the oldest knowledge of the village, including stories that even Eldrick refused to discuss. Thalia was the village trickster, always laughing, always causing trouble, and somehow always appearing when someone needed help. Isolde was their seer, and for 3 nights she had been dreaming of the same impossible thing: a red moon hanging over the forest while something ancient opened its eyes beneath the roots. On the 4th night, Isolde finally told Eldrick what she had seen. She told him that something beneath the forest was waking after centuries of silence. Eldrick's face became pale. For 300 years, he had hoped that night would never come. "What did you see?" Eldrick whispered. Isolde looked toward the northern forest. "I saw fire," she said. "I saw our homes burning, and I saw one of us standing in the middle of it." Eldrick immediately called the other 9 fairies to the council tree. Nobody understood why they had been called together so suddenly, but Morgra already knew. She had felt the awakening beneath the earth 3 nights earlier, and unlike the others, she had not been afraid. She had been waiting for it. For years, Morgra had believed the forest was becoming weaker. The streams were shrinking, the oldest trees were dying, and animals were disappearing from the northern woods. Morgra believed the other fairies were too afraid to admit the truth. She believed something ancient was feeding on the life of the forest, and she believed there was only one way to stop it. She would have to awaken the thing beneath the roots herself. But Morgra had made one mistake. He had never told Seraphine what she truly intended. Seraphine followed her into the northern woods that same night. She watched as Morgra uncovered an ancient stone buried beneath the roots. The markings were older than the village itself. Morgra placed her hand upon the stone, and the entire forest fell silent. Then the ground beneath them began to tremble. Seraphine nearly ran, but Morgra turned toward her. "You followed me," Morgra said. Seraphine did not deny it. Instead, she asked the question Morgra had been hoping someone would ask. "What is buried beneath this forest?" Morgra looked at the ancient seal and finally told her the truth. "Beneath us is the first guardian of this forest. Long before our village existed, it protected these woods. But something happened. The guardian was wounded, and when it could no longer protect the forest, the first fairies sealed it beneath the earth. They believed the seal would last forever, but the forest has been dying, and the seal has been weakening with it." Morgra believed that if the guardian awakened, it could restore the forest. Seraphine saw something Morgra had failed to consider. What if it no longer remembers how to protect us? Morgra remained silent. For the first time, doubt crossed her face. But before either fairy could say another word, the stone cracked. A deep sound rose from beneath the earth. It sounded almost like breathing. Morgra stepped back. Then something moved beneath the roots. Seraphine grabbed Morgra's arm. Run. They ran toward the village, but they were too late. Ancient oak at the center of the village began to shake. Aelira rushed outside with the other fairies. Branwen raised her spear and ordered everyone to stay together. Then the ground split open near the northern edge of the village. For one terrible moment, everyone saw the same thing. Two enormous eyes opening beneath the forest, and Eldrick knew the nightmare from his past had finally returned. 300 years earlier, Eldrick had witnessed the same red moon. He had watched an entire generation of fairies disappear beneath the earth, and he had sworn never to allow it to happen again. Now the promise he had made centuries ago was being tested. Everyone inside, Eldrick commanded, but Branwen refused to move. If something is coming, she said, someone has to stand against it. Eldrick looked at her and remembered himself at her age. You're brave, he said, but courage without wisdom is how this forest nearly died. Before Branwen could answer, the northern trees began falling. Something was moving toward them. Aelira saw the fear in the villagers and began helping them escape. Nimue ran toward the river. If the creature reached the village, the river would be their only escape. Rowena searched desperately through the ancient records. She knew there had to be a way to stop the Guardian. Then she found something that made her blood run cold. The Guardian had never been sealed to protect the forest. It had been sealed because it was the thing destroying it. Morgra had just opened its prison. For the first time, Morgra understood that she had made a terrible mistake. The creature beneath the forest was not its guardian, it was its destroyer. Seraphine looked at Morgra with anger. You knew this could happen? Morgra shook her head. No, she whispered. I thought I could control it, but the creature had already awakened. Its first roar shook every tree in the forest. Windows shattered. The river rose into the air, and the oldest oak split down the middle. Eldrick knew they could not defeat the creature with magic alone. They needed the original seal, but the original seal had been destroyed centuries ago. Rowena suddenly remembered the old records. The river stone, she said. The first fairies used a stone from Nimue's river to create the seal. If they could find that stone, they might be able to imprison the creature again. But there was one problem. The stone was hidden beneath the deepest part of the river, and something had been guarding it for thousands of years. Nimue looked into the water and recognized the creature immediately. It was not an enemy. It was the last servant of the original forest guardian. Nimue stepped into the river. The water opened around her as if it knew her name. She disappeared beneath the surface. Above her, Eldrick waited in silence, but Morgra had followed them. She knew something they did not. The creature beneath the forest was already getting stronger. Every tree it touched became dark and lifeless. Every stream it reached began to dry, and every creature in the northern forest fled. Morgra realized there was no time left for regret. If the seal could be restored, she would help restore it. But if the others refused to trust her, she would have to prove herself. Meanwhile, deep beneath the river, Nimue finally reached the sacred stone. But the moment she touched it, the guardian opened its eyes. Nimue froze beneath the water. The ancient creature slowly moved toward her, but instead of attacking, it lowered its head. Nimue understood. The stone was not simply a weapon, it was a key, and the key could either close the prison or open it completely. Nimue realized that someone had to choose carefully. She took the stone and began swimming toward the surface. Above the river, Morgra finally entered the village. Every fairy turned toward her. Nobody spoke. Then Eldrick stepped forward. You broke the seal. Morgra nodded. I thought I was saving us. Seraphine was stepped beside her. She is telling the truth, Seraphina said. She made a mistake, but she did not awaken it to destroy us. Branwen lowered her spear, but she did not lower her suspicion. Intentions do not matter if the forest dies because of them, she said. Morgra accepted the words without defending herself. Then Nimue emerged from the river. She held the sacred stone in both hands. For the first time that night, Eldrick smiled, but Rowena immediately warned him. A stone can restore the seal, she said, but it needs 10 magical bonds, one for each of us. Everyone understood what that meant. If even one fairy broke the circle, the ritual would fail, and the creature was already approaching the village. Eldrick looked at the 10 fairies. Tonight, we stop fighting each other. We fight for the forest. Branwen stepped into position first. Elira joined her. Then Nimue placed the sacred stone at the center. One by one, the others took their places, and when Morgra stepped into the final position, the forest went completely silent. No wind moved through the branches, no birds called from the trees. Even the river stopped flowing. Then Eldrick raised his staff. The ritual began. Golden light spread from Elira's hands. Blue light rose from Nimue. Green light surrounded Branwen. Silver light came from Isolde, and dark crimson energy rose from Morgra. For a moment, the colors fought against each other. Then Eldrick shouted the ancient words. The 10 fairies joined their magic, and the forest answered. The dead trees began to turn green. The river began to flow, but beneath them, the creature screamed. The ground exploded upward. Morgra nearly lost her place, but this time she did not run. The creature pushed harder. The circle began to break. Branwen fell to one knee. Elira reached for her. Stay with us. Branwen stood again. Then the creature attacked the barrier. The shockwave threw Elowen backward. Thalia caught her before she hit the ground. For once, Thalia was not laughing. She looked at Eldrick. Is this enough? Eldrick looked toward the northern forest. No, he said. We are missing something. Rowena suddenly looked at Morgra. Morgra, she whispered. You opened the seal. You may be the only one who can close it. Morgra looked at the creature beneath the forest, then at the fairies beside her. For the first time, Morgra understood what she had to do. She stepped toward the center of the circle. The others released their magic into her hands. Morgra screamed as the ancient power entered her, but she held on. She remembered the village, the children, and the forest she had almost destroyed. I will not let it take them. She slammed her hands onto the sacred stone. The entire forest lit up. The creature roared one final time, then the earth became still. The red moon slowly faded behind the clouds. The ancient oak began growing again, and the village was safe. But Morgra was different. She no longer wanted power. She wanted to protect the forest she had nearly lost. And from that night onward, the 10 fairies were remembered as the guardians of the ancient forest.